under both their careers is this interest in and then eventually succumbing to mental illness. And for them, I mean, these guys were literally looking for a bug or a virus or something that was causing this.
It all stemmed from, in 1905, there was a big breakthrough when a neuropathologist found a bug in the brain that caused syphilis. And at third stage syphilis causes insanity. And the asylums were filled with a lot of people, like 10% of the asylum populations were syphilitics, but they were mad, right? So the doctors sort of logically thought, well, now we found that bug, now maybe we can find a bug for schizophrenia and manic depression. And my grandfather was in the first wave of those scientists, and when he was at 999 Queen Street in 1907, he was a neuropathologist cutting open the brains of Irish paupers, trying to find the Holy Grail. And at a certain point, I think he realized it was fruitless, but it was not getting anywhere. And so that's when he shifted into public health. I mean, bacteriology was a bridge into public health. And so I think he realized, well, you know, I got a better shot at wiping out diphtheria than schizophrenia, you know. But of course, all the while, there's something in him that's probably, he knows at some level, you know. I mean, I hate to put labels on people. I don't believe in that. These labels hide as much as they reveal things like manic depression. And these are very crude. Doctors need them to kind of help them identify people. But my father and grandfather don't easily fit into that category. I mean, you could say they're manic depressive, but there's so much evidence that, I mean, for example, my grandfather was just on a 30-year ride of amazing productivity. Is that manic? Well, maybe, but you know,
they were manic, then depressive, because they both
they weren't like that. They weren't like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because they had the same pathology of mental illness. They were extraordinarily productive, doing really well, and then all of a sudden,
midlife crisis,
hits, and they just the wheels come right off.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's almost identical. You see,
must scare the crap out of you.
Got my attention, but the only thing that really got my attention was witnessing it in my father when I was a teenager. That's the first thing I'm thinking. I knew nothing about my grandfather, so I had nothing to compare it to.
Because he was a taboo subject.
Yeah, that's right. And so I figured it out. I mean, kids are smart, right? I knew better than the psychiatrists knew, because the psychiatrists weren't connecting that dot. That's what's appalling about the treatment of my father in the 60s and 70s, was no one sort of thought, gee, maybe his father's influence on him is a factor here in this, the way he's behaving, rather than seeing him as a bundle of biochemical imbalances and, you know, an object to be studied and shocked and drugged, which is what he was. You know, it is shocking, pardon the pun, how he was treated, and it made him worse. He got more despairing because he knew they couldn't help him.
And was it his godfather is one of those?
Best is his godfather. Yeah.
The co-inventor of insulin, and then he ends up getting.
He got shock as well at the end of his life.
Insulin shock. Well,
ECT. He got electrotherapy best. But my grandfather. That's the great supreme irony. And when I was digging in the archives and I found my grandfather's files, this was what blew the lid off this story. When I found this stuff, that's when I realized I had a book, because I was able to connect the dots finally. And that here's, you know, Jerry Fitzgerald has produced the insulin for the world, the millions of diabetics. Best said there would be no insulin without Fitzgerald. He was a key player in getting it refined and produced, and it stopped them from all punching each other out. And, you know, and amazing story. And so I go into the CAMH archives in 1995, and I find these incredible letters that my grandfather has written to a psychiatrist friend back in Toronto in the last year of his life, and he's in this mental hell in this asylum in Hartford, and guess what? They're giving him a brand new experimental treatment called insulin shock, which is long since discredited, but he was basically a guinea pig, and he had 57 of these things. And if you've ever seen the movie A Beautiful Mind, they show a very accurate description of what you go through, which is Dante's Inferno. You know, convulsions and sweats and coma, and people died from this procedure, because you'd go to the lip of death. The idea was, how close can we put you into oblivion and then pull you back with a glucose solution? That was deemed therapeutic, because there would be short-term benefits in some patients, not all. You'd kill some, but the doctors, you know, would justify this as, you know, yes, it's a desperate cure, but we're saving lives, was the rationale. In my grandfather's case, like my father's, it pushed him deeper into his suicidal despair. So he, in his letters, it's very clear from reading between the lines that he pretends that he's better to get the hell out of there, which is I think a lot of those patients do. They finally realize, these doctors want me to behave in a certain way. I have to look normal, and I'll get out of here.
Can you forgive those men?
I only knew my father and not my grandfather, so the journey was fascinating for me emotionally, because early on I kind of idealized my grandfather, because nice guy to identify with him as a child. I mean,
yeah.
I want to change my name from James to Jerry, I say to my mother. There's something going on there, and there's things in his personality I could recognize in myself as I understood him over the years. So, but I really regret I didn't meet him and know him. Like if he was alive today, he'd be 90. My father was the one that was most present. So my anger at my father, I always had to eat. I had to swallow it because of the position I was in, with both my parents, really. Right from the beginning, you had to. That's what we were raised in a very Victorian way. We were raised the same way my father was raised, in the same house. I mean, it was a replay again. And then all I can say is thank God for the 1960s, because it sort of blew the doors off those mores and gave me a chance. I was 18 in 1968 and coming out of high school, and that was good timing.
The book is What Disturbs Our Blood? A Son's Quest to Redeem the Past. I've been speaking with the author James Fitzgerald, and What Disturbs Our Blood, published by Random House of Canada.